Good morning, Ben. Thanks for joining me today. So you are the winner of Cornwall Slush'D 2025, and you'll be joining us in Helsinki at Slush itself in November. So we just wanted to get a little bit of your story today, to hear from you how it went, how you have got to where you are today, and what's next, really. So yeah, first of all, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what your story has been with that to get you to today.
Yeah, well, firstly, still reeling off last week. That was probably one of the most proud moments I've ever been in my entrepreneurial journey. So it was a real moment of validation for me and also motivation moving forward. So really great day. The event was organized amazingly. You did great as well. So was super happy. My journey into biotech is probably a bit of an odd one. I was always wanting to be a professional tennis player growing up. So I was competing at a super high level till I was kind of 18, 19. And then I actually got the chance to move to Brazil for over a year to work in my first biotech company, which was called Gali. Really cool startup out there that is pioneering lab grown cotton. So cotton made out of stem cells in a lab. So super cool stuff. And that's where I got my first real taste of how biotech innovation is really shaping the future of the world. I worked really close quarters with an amazing entrepreneur and the CEO of Gali, Luciano Bueno. And by doing that and working on the project management teams, I realized that you can make fiscal change as long as you put in the hours. So that was my first real taste of working super hard and also working alongside teams that are making real changes. So I went there speaking no Portuguese, had to present, I think, in front of 30, 40 people within maybe 2-3 months in Portuguese. So I had to work really hard, learn a whole different industry, and it was a really crazy experience for me. Coming back to uni to finish my final year, we created my first mini startup as part of a competition in Bath called Plague Prevention Solutions, which was, the idea was essentially to create a novel pheromone to stop locust swarms in Eastern Africa. We actually ended up going to win that competition. And that's when I realized that biotech entrepreneurship was my way forward. Coming out of uni, I needed to find something, to find an idea. And I was talking to one of my best friends, a PhD student, and he was telling me he's working on a new therapy and needed bacterial strains to create an enzyme for his therapy. Went to biobanks all across the globe. The import costs were crazy, and the lead times to get there was 2-3 months, and it actually stopped his project even before it began. So that was my first inkling of, okay, there's a real problem here, and it seems like maybe we could solve it. So I had no network, no funding at all, and no real way to start this. Best way to get started, try and meet some people. So tried to bounce from conference to conference and realizes ticket sizes are sometimes $1,000 to get in. So I remember going to my first conference, which was Anglo Nordic in London, 700 quid to get in, couldn't afford it. Ended up emailing everyone on the team, managing to get on to work in the catering team, actually. They just serendipitously put me on the welcome team, which means that when people came in, I would introduce them to the event, and I would also go, "Hi, I'm Benjamin Felt. I'm also trying to start a company." And by doing that, I made some of my first real connections in the biotech space, getting lab space, getting my first mentors from that initial conference where I was working the catering team, actually. And from there, we managed to get grants. And that's really how this whole Strainvaults project started. So a bit of a weird route, but quite an interesting one, I think.
That's amazing hustle. I love that. So you started, the way that you got access to your the conference that you wanted to get access to all the attendees at to build your network was to work there and then make sure you introduce yourself to like 50% of the people coming through.
I was very lucky that they didn't put me in, they could have put me in back of house, but it was just complete serendipity that they put me on the welcome team. So I got to meet everyone who came in, had access to all their cards, what businesses they were working for. Actually ended up writing my own name, Benjamin Felt, Strainvaults, on a lanyard and kind of ran around trying to meet as many people as possible by working in the catering team.
That's an amazing story. The bit you mentioned about going to work for a biotech company in Brazil, you then mentioned coming back to university to finish your final year. Was that a university year that was like a year in industry, or how did that come about? And what were you studying at uni?
So I studied bio and biochem at uni at Bath, and Bath is famous for their placement projects. Nevertheless, the placements that were offered were not attractive to me. They were all in the UK, they were all in really established big pharma companies for the bio side, and I really wanted to work on kind of grassroots biotech innovations. So I actually ended up sorting that job in Brazil out myself. I think it took me probably 10 months of emailing 200-300 companies all over the globe, most of which in Brazil, because I spent a lot of my gap year out doing research in the Atlantic forest in Brazil on bioluminescent mushrooms, and I knew I wanted to go back. So I must have spent 10 months getting rejected, and I think I had a month left, maybe literally 3 or 4 weeks left before I would have just had to stay in London for the year while everyone else went on placements. And this company that I applied for saw something in me, fortunately, gave me the job, even without speaking any Portuguese at that point. And ironically, a lot of my job was actually communications between the business side of the department and the science side of the department. And I couldn't really communicate too much at the beginning. So it was a lot of hard work, but we managed to get through it. And that's really how that job came about.
So there's a lot coming through in terms of themes of like determination, never giving up, and finding alternative ways to do the thing that you want to do.
I think that'd be a good way of classifying it. Trying to be in the most uncomfortable situations possible and persevere nevertheless.
And how's your Portuguese now?
My Portuguese is great, actually. Thankfully, after a year of working, 9 to 9s in these companies, we every day speaking 10 hours of Portuguese. You get used to it pretty quick, actually.
Portuguese as well as Brazilian Portuguese.
I prefer Brazilian Portuguese, a much better version of Portuguese.
Okay, very loyal to your core. Yeah, fascinating story, and I can see sort of how some of this is evolving into what we've seen in the last few weeks. So why did you apply to pitch at Slush'D? How did you find out about it? And what was your story behind that piece in particular?
Slush'D was sent to me by one of my advisors. So one of my first advisors, it was Alicia Showering, and you guys did a post on LinkedIn. She sent it through to me and said it might be interesting. I think I was only maybe 3 months in from paper to building. So I was incredibly new, had built my first couple pitch decks, thought I may be a bit too nascent for Slush'D. Nevertheless, I worked really hard on my pitch deck, sent it through, and 2 months later got a call. I believe it was from you or Nikki,
yeah.
while I was on my way to my labs in Plymouth, saying I'd won, which was great at the time. I think at the time it also filled me with a lot of dread, because I'd watched last year's Slush and all the presentation pitches and the founders were incredibly strong, and so I knew I had a long way to go before I would feel confident and competent being up on stage. But from the time that you guys gave me the ring to Slush'D happening, which was probably 6 weeks, there was so much development, partly because it was my first time pitching ever and first pitch decks ever made, and I really wanted to demonstrate the idea of Strainvaults and how it can actually change rates of innovation in the UK, which is massive. So there was a lot of development in a really short space of time.
And how did you prepare for it then? You're saying like you hadn't developed it much, you were building your pitch deck, but lots was changing at the time. Like, how did you prepare from submitting your pitch and being shortlisted for the final 10 to then actually pitching on the day? What did that look like for you? as well as building your company at the same time. You're still going through all the development and getting your MVP and hustling.
Yeah, I think first step was to realize I'm new and slightly naive to what makes pitch decks and presentations right. So I needed people who had been through it and done it. And I became a LinkedIn warrior for a while. And I sent my pitch deck and my presentation off to probably around 30, 40 people at least. Every single one of them came back with individual, unique, and also really great advice for me. Every time sending iterations back, it must have gone through at least 30 iterations. What was really helpful to me was lots of the people I was sending it through to were not biologists, had never heard of biobanking before, and really made me understand that being able to articulate your idea to a group of people who have no idea, who have never seen this industry before, was the key. So that helped me understand that building out a story rather than just explaining the science behind it was more applicable. And so it was all iterative improvements rather than just with myself combining as many other voices as I can. I'm still learning a lot and I still have a lot to learn. And so running it by people who have been there and done it was probably the best move I made.
And were they people you knew, or was that sort of cold outreach or your new network that you've been building?
What type of
people were they?
A bit of a mix. So I actually reached out to a lot of venture capital companies,
okay.
not to get investment, rather to just explain my situation. So I would go on their, contact us Teams board and just email each of them separately. You go into their LinkedIn, find out what they've done in the past, so you can send them somewhat of an individual personalized email. And I was really pleasantly surprised by how many of them were keen to help out. I wasn't expecting it so much at the beginning, but coming forth with them, not to just pitch them an idea for investment, but to actually gain insights into the mind of investors, they really gave me their time. So going to VCs, seeing it from their perspective, because that is really a lot of the perspective that matters. And also they've seen thousands of startups start and fail, and what are the really key things that people look for and make a company successful. For example, I think one of the biggest things that I really wasn't aware of was how important building out your prospective teams were. I had this idea that I could do this all myself, and showing that I could power through without needing anybody else would show investors something cool and different. But that's just another show of immaturity and naivety, I think, at the beginning. People are everything in this game, and building a solid team around you was something I had never even thought to do before having these sessions with investors. And so from then on, that's how I really started to build out my core specialized advisory team. People like Andrew Turner, people like who really helped me out with my pitch. Actually, Andrew helped me out with my pitch loads because he has a amazing startup network for startup founders called Foundarity, which anybody should check out. And he posted on there that I was doing Slush'd, and if any of the other kind of CEOs on their network, exited CEOs, would be available for a call to help me out, that would be great. We ended up doing a call, I think 2 weeks before Slush'd. I got some amazing insights into how to improve my presentation. And yeah, it went through a lot of iterative improvements from then on.
Amazing. So it's like, if you don't ask, you don't get, basically. And you asked, and so you got back some great responses. I think what's really interesting about that process is that you were looking for feedback on your pitch, but you got feedback that actually changed the way that you were building the business, and what you were focusing on in terms of building that advisory board around you. And that's probably brought in more expertise earlier on than you had maybe planned for, that's helped you out. But equally, it's built some really good early relationships with investors where they're actually seeing you put their feedback into action. And so, they say that in the pre-seed stage, investors are backing the people. And one, you've built the advisory board around you, but two, they're also seeing you actually going out and doing the work now. So next time you go back to them, if it is to ask for investment next time, they'll have seen the progress you made from the last time you reached out to them. And it's building those early relationships and the early what's the word, reputation for how you're building your business that will probably set you up even stronger going forwards for what you need to do next. I don't know if I've ever heard of someone doing quite that much outreach and like cold call hustle to get to that point. So it's really impressive to hear.
I think because I am fresh out of university and I haven't had years and years of time to build out my network in companies, I really was one of my biggest gaps was my network at the beginning, and I didn't know anybody, and I knew I needed to solve that issue if I was going to be successful. So that was a priority for me from day one.
Yeah, and you can see you've put that into action, and so yeah, kudos to you for that. Then, so you've done all the preparation, you've been practicing your pitch, I assume, as well as sending it to investors. What was the day itself like? Like, how did the pitch go?
It was a crazy day. crazy day, because although we've got some initial grant funding from providers like Innovate UK and Enterprise Solutions, we haven't raised quite enough for me to live. So all the money goes straight back into the company. I have to work a part-time job in the evenings as a tennis coach. And so the day before Slush'D in London, I was coaching till 10:30, 11 p.m. Needed to be in Newquay, Cornwall at 9 a.m. So I ended up getting the coach from Victoria Station at midnight all the way to Cornwall, which was just over 7 hours. Managed to maybe get an hour of sleep on that coach. Woke up in Newquay, went straight to Cafe Nero, 3 coffees in, and went straight up to pitch. And I think you had one dropout on the day, which meant I actually had to pitch earlier as well. So had to get myself ready, and probably not the most of comfortable mornings ever, but knew it was just about getting myself relaxed. I got to watch the other pitches, which was great. The format was moving nice and easy. And I remember having one chat with I think it was one that you provided with Chrissy. So she is
with a pitch coach.
With a pitch coach. And she gave me some really valuable advice, which was, when you get up there, the first thing that you do is take 3-4 seconds to just look out, compose yourself, and then get started and breathe. which was probably one of the most useful comments I'd received, and it came from that hour of the pitch coach that you guys provided, and from there slowed everything down, managed to get everything in, articulate my thoughts exactly as I wanted to, which was great. Had prepped for all different types of questions that could be asked in the Q&A, and so was ready for that as well. And yeah, that was the time leading up to the pitch.
So you, we had someone whose transport had been delayed, which meant that they couldn't pitch until the end of the session. And you were meant to pitch after the break. And instead, I think I remember calling out into the audience and sort of looking out, is Benjamin from Strainvaults here? Could you pitch next? And you just said, yeah, sure. I'm like strolled down to the front, no notes, just off. It looked like it was off the cuff, but incredibly slick and professional. And some of the other people who were pitching had commented afterwards about how much they wouldn't have been able to cope with that. So for you to come down and sort of pitch up what it seemed like off the cuff, but from what we're discussing today was incredibly well practiced. And
well, I'm thrilled that it seemed like it was off the cusp. It was definitely not off the cusp. It took a lot of presentation and a lot of time to get myself into that position.
And then I think you said to me afterwards, you went, oh my goodness, that was the first time I've ever pitched. And I was like, how on earth was that the first time you've ever pitched? It
was the first time I had ever been on stage, first time I had ever pitched, first time ever doing public speaking. So it was a lot of new experiences all in one. And I actually loved it. I really, really loved it. And I can't wait to do that sort of thing again now.
Good. Well, a good positive first experience then. So when you were announced as the winner, what sort of was going through your head? What happened next in your brain at that point?
I was a little bit shocked, just because this standard of founder and company at this year's Slush'D was so high. So I was a little bit shocked to begin with. Had to walk all the way from the top of the auditorium down, and was trying my best not to stumble over the stairs. Was my exact thoughts. And got to the bottom and was, for one of the first times in my life, absolutely speechless. And then I was asked to say something, so I had to gather my composure. It was a great experience, and the time that you guys gave me to speak definitely allowed me to express not just how happy I was, but I think I also got to express how important I think this is going to be for Strainvaults, and that this is really going to have a fiscal impact if we can succeed with winning these sorts of things and making Strainvaults into a better company with increasing rates of science innovation in the UK. So it went perfectly.
What else did you get out of the day? Because obviously it's the pitch competition is sort of only not only, but it's about a third of what we offer as a part of Slush'D. So we have the pitch competition, we have a series of talks and panels in the afternoon, and we also have trade show stands for both the startups and for some of our sponsors and supporting organisations that can support startups on their journey. And then there's the attendees themselves, who sort of are from investors, support organisations, other businesses. What did you get out of the day? Like, what else were you able to achieve with being at Slush'D?
Yeah, so you get a stand provided to you, so you're in a little space where you can market Strainvaults. And as you said, the attendees include a lot of investors. So I actually got to have quite a few one-on-one chats with investors that normally I would have had to do cold outreach to get, which is amazing, because I think, as anyone knows, having face-to-face time is so much more meaningful. And to get the face-to-face time with these type of potential investors is really difficult when your network is a bit smaller and you don't have any way of doing a warm introduction. So I have about 4 or 5 meetings with different investors that I only met that day in Slush'D. So, and that was probably the biggest positive consequence I got from Slush'D, being able to meet and get introduced to people I only would have been able to do cold outreach to get before.
That's great. And they would have seen you pitch as well. So they'll have seen the pitch as a starting point. So you've almost broken through one of the hurdles and you're straight into a productive conversation about how you can work together or what their thoughts are. Secondly,
in terms of the panels that were there, a lot of people had very relatable stories, or at least the start of their stories. They're all exited CEOs now or running their own big companies. Their stories were very relatable in the sense of, at the beginning, lots of them hadn't done lots of prior entrepreneurship work, hadn't built a company before. Some of them started out from uni or just finished after uni and still made terrific companies. To be able to hear people like that speak and to hear how they succeeded, overcome mental challenges, not just business challenges, is not just inspiring, but it actually provided just a bit of validity to what I'm doing. A lot of the other founders that I meet tend to be a lot more experienced, have done this type of thing before, have built out a network over 10 years of working in all different sectors. And so to see other people do what I'm doing and become successful was actually really important to me, and I hadn't actually seen that before.
Great. And in terms of the other founders pitching on the day, did you make some kindred spirits to help
actually absolutely
your comrades on this journey?
100%. Calitech, Katie, who's building out almost like a Airbnb for key workers, in a sense. We actually had our stands next to each other. I don't think we stopped chatting for the entire day.
I've got some great pictures I need to send you of that, actually. There's a lot of you and Katie head to head sort of talking, you can see.
Yeah. She's also a young founder and solo founder and has done everything by herself. She one of the coolest, hardworking people I've met at a conference to date. She's really cool. Also being able to be part of the demo days, because after you guys had the pitch event, you had a little demo event. So I really want to get started demoing my AI to investors as well at demo events and seeing how they run and what makes a good one, and one that needs improvement was really important to me.
And so are you on that investment journey now then? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I want to start my pre-seed round within the next couple of weeks. It's taken a while to get myself into a position where we've got initial traction, where I can articulate the problem and the market size, and getting all of those things into place was important before we headed out to investors, I think, because otherwise you can come off a bit too immature. So next kind of 6 weeks, 8 weeks will be a lot of investor meetings, a lot more conferences, meeting as many people as possible, and hoping for the best.
That's great planning for Slush then, because that's how they define themselves as the biggest bringing together of founders and investors in Europe. So it's a great place for you to be actively fundraising. What else is next then? So that's your next 6 to 8 weeks looking at fundraising. But what does this next year look like? What might we see if you come back to Slush'd next September to Newquay on that overnight megabus or National Express? What will you be hoping to bring us a story of then?
So we've already signed a couple really exciting letters of intent with customers and clients in the human health sectors and the agri-tech sectors. What we want to be able to say by kind of this time next year is that we have developed high predicted strains, so high quality strains that have actually been able to be used in our customers' research and hopefully been able to commercialize products with. So they've skipped out on spending hundreds of thousands of strains they don't need, gone exactly to where they can get strains to actually commercialize their products with by next year. So January 2026, our commercial platform goes live. We've got our first clients lined up, and we want to be able to say that we've brought them all the way to commercialization by kind of October next year.
Great, and then developing that customer pipeline and the extra validation of the proof of value and time saving that you offer people.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Can't wait to tell that story next September then. We'll have to get you back on stage for for an update. Thank you so much for your time today and for the amazing amount of work that you put into preparing for Slush'd. It's really clear now to see how you came out as the winner, based on the preparation that you did, the diligence that you put into what you were doing and what you were building. For it to be your first professional pitch and only 6 months into the Strainvaults journey, it's amazing to think about what could be possible in the next year. So we're really looking forward to following your story, and also I'm looking forward to seeing you at Slush and seeing how you activate this hustle in a much bigger setting with more investors, with more founders, and with more opportunities to make the most of it. So yeah, thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and to see you pitch at Slush'd. We're really privileged to have been a part of your story, and I'm sure you've got great successes ahead of you.
Oh, let's hope. Thank you for your time, Shona.